modification of approved site plan. Following that, we have a similar modification of approved site plan for Cornerstone Bank at 200 Charlton Road. Then we'll have a request for a release of Phase 1 from the covenant and approved bond amount for Blueberry Hill Estates. After that, we'll discuss some proposed zoning amendments and possible vote to serve as petitioner for these amendments. And after that, we will have the town planner update, old and new business, and adjournment. So, has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes of September 23rd? Hey, Hank, welcome. Yes. Okay, any questions, comments, changes? If not, can we have a motion to approve as submitted? Move.
Second.
Any other discussion? You have a minute to look at them. All set? All in favor? Aye, opposed, no. Great. Okay. This is a public hearing, so we can start if you want.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as the board is aware, I did send you an update. Mass DOT has made some changes to the access for Noble Energy, and it in the process kind of destroying some of the islands inside of the facility, so we need to do some minor modifications. Normally, I would have done these as field modifications reflected in the as-built, but because the change is necessitated by a change by Mass DOT, I thought it was best that we at least update the board, ask Dave to come in, prepare a plan showing the changes. And so Dave is here to go over them with the board this evening. And quite frankly, we don't really have much choice in the matter at this point. So I would ask that you approve these modifications, but Dave can kind of explain what's going on.
Great. Yeah, my name is David Feist with CMG. I'm the project engineer here on behalf of Noble Energy. As everyone that probably has noticed within the past few months, DOT at the exit from the high-speed diesel lane put up the yellow dividers and made it a right turn only, so they're prohibiting left turns now, which has forced the tractor trailers to basically exit the high-speed diesel, which is located on the far left, and then traverse through the site in front of the big pump island and then out the main entrance. With that, the two furthest high-speed diesel lanes can make that maneuver fairly easily, but the one closest was running over the curb islands and hitting the area. So the applicant asked us to just come forward with some minor changes, basically changing the curbing and the striping just to allow the tractor trailers to make that movement. It does, when it's exiting the site, we also provided a truck turn diagram. And I don't know if you can put that up, Janae, please. One of the things when we were up there, I went over this with John Shevlin, so he also had an opportunity to look at it. Basically, the trucks can make the maneuver, and with the curbing modifications and striping, it'll help try to limit, where the other cars and other stuff, to keep them out of the way. But you can see where it goes to exit the main driveway exit, really takes up that whole area in front of where the electric vehicle charging is, the square rectangle on the upper right. So basically, cars that are entering the site, thankfully, we have about 4 or 5 cars stacking, cars entering the site. So when a tractor trailer is making that maneuver, the cars will pause and the tractor trailer can make it, or vice versa. I've also seen cars entering and the tractor trailer has to wait right about where the tanks are next to the main fueling area for all the cars where the 10 pumps are. Unfortunately, right now, until they have a traffic signal designed, this is sort of the only option, is a sort of a temporary, possibly permanent fix. And it's been sort of operating this way now for several months. But as Gene had mentioned, I think they redid some traffic counts and originally had said no, that they weren't going to put a traffic light, but now it sounds like they have the warrant so that they now will be back to designing a traffic light. So hopefully at some point we'll have a permanent solution, because it is, as you've seen, I know I drive this way every day, and tractor trailers crossing all 4 lanes, it's a little tough. Oh, hey, Mike.
Sorry, Mike.
Oh, and Mike Frisbee with Noble Energy.
Hello, everybody. Oh, sorry, I'm late.
Oh, no worries. Yep, so just updating the board. I don't know if you have anything to, a lot of it's out of our hands as far as DOT's kind of forcing us to do this.
Yeah, I don't know how much he's explained so far, but I'm sure Gene might have updated you where they did their own counts, said we didn't warrant the traffic signal. We did our counts, we warrant the traffic signal. Now we're back again. After everything we've been through, we thought all we had to do was finish up our design, we're 95% there on the design, and then this was a comment that came in at the end, which really threw us for a loop. They said you don't warrant a light. So now we're back. We're hopeful that we know that the data shows that we warrant the light. It's a matter of how they react and come back to us. So, and we're hopeful to have that meeting next week sometime.
So in the meantime, this is be a sort of a go-to plan to especially that filling place, the station right closest to the building. That's so tight there now. And now you just, by taking the pieces off the islands there, you've made it a lot easier for everything to come through. And you're right, it makes it really kind of tight going up near the building and making that swing down there, but it can be done.
Yep.
I have a question though, the fill for the tanks, is that, as seen there to the right of the islands right there?
Actually, those are the vent pipes for the tanks, are
Okay.
off in the island. Yep, so, and,
And not in front of the parking spaces there? That's the vent pipes there?
yeah, I believe, well, they're in the landscape
They're in the
area.
landscape island.
But even today, actually, somebody commented to me, when the tanks are being filled, if a truck's exiting, they'd have to wait for the tanker truck to finish.
That's
Just in
my
the
question.
event. And do you know how long it takes for like a tanker truck to, is it,
It takes, well, it depends on the operator,
Yeah.
but it should take 12 to 15 minutes
Yeah.
for them
That's
to.
Kind of a lot for someone to be waiting.
Yeah, that's a lot, and especially these guys who are fueling up and boogieing because they got to make a date. That's what I'm thinking of. But that was my only concern. Otherwise, it was
Operation, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but operationally, we can work around that for the deliveries, when they come in.
all set. Then that's cool.
We spend a lot more time filling on the left-hand side than the right, only just because of the capacity and
Right,
the volume.
understand that. Yeah.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Dane, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I noticed that on the truck turn, it looks like it clips the canopy on the bottom right corner of the canopy. And it also looks like the truck turn is as close as, like, maybe you defined where you cut your curb based on the truck body. I assume there's gonna be like some reduction in green space, which is negligible, and we're losing a parking space, which is negligible. I would encourage you to cut these curbs back even more. They're still negligible amounts, and these guys are gonna hit these things if they're that close. But the one spot that's on the plan at the bottom right of the canopy, it looks like the body kind of conflicts with that rectangle.
but it could be the canopy's actually taller than the truck, so it can pass under it. So it's more the island underneath that would be the concern, so.
Yeah, this is gonna be interesting when there's a queue trying to get out under Route 20, but as we've all said, it is what it is.
Thank you.
You want anything else?
No, I'm good.
Brad?
Yeah.
Sheila?
Nothing.
Dave?
The size of the tractor and the truck displayed here is what is the
It's
dimensions?
pretty much the
of
largest
this?
one. I believe it's the WB67 that we use, which is one of the larger vehicles.
It's like a
so-
53 plus a long haul,
Yes.
long wheelbase.
Yeah, which is the largest one that we usually use. It used to be WB50 a long
Yeah.
time ago, and now over the years, we've gone to much larger design vehicles. And in reality, a lot of times, the actual tractor trailers can make the maneuvers a lot better than our tractor trailer turning
So
diagram.
this is based on sort of the
Very conservative.
conservative scenario, and yeah, and this would take, a driver would have to really be on to make it in one shot in some cases as well, or if there's a situation where a car parks in an interesting spot around those pumps, there's that excursion into the other entry lane on that other side too, as you just mentioned. But yeah, there were only other choices to take the right.
And so far too, just with the way gas stations operate, and I know I've observed just by going there, people are fairly courteous, so most of the time people do wait, and it's nice and open and flat, so there's not a lot of sight obstruction, so people can kind of see what's going on, so.
Okay.
Sorry, Charlie, one last thing.
Sure, go ahead.
So we got an email from Gene that said there's no traffic signal happening. And now we're hearing that you guys have some fresh
Yeah.
numbers and you're submitting. And this week, you're going to have a meeting with DOT.
We're hoping. So, yes, so since my last update, the new counts were done. It does show, the data does show the warrants are met. That information's been resubmitted to Mass DOT, asking that they review that as expeditiously as possible. We've asked that we have a meeting within a 2-week period. So we're, already through week 1. So we're hoping by the end of next week we'll have something. I had to alert MassWorks because we had to file our quarterly report. So our last quarterly report, as you know, I had to say, well, they're saying we don't meet the warrants. We disagree. So Michael at his expense. So he's, it bears repeating. He was already $88,000 in on the design in addition to the $250,000 grant. And now he had to do new counts and new studies. So, he's in this pretty deep for a signal that he's paying for out of his own pocket. So we're a little frustrated, trying to stay positive. We think we're in the right path. We certainly have all the right data to prove the case. So we're waiting.
Thank you for the update.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. So could I have a motion then to vote to allow the modification with the condition that as-built plans be updated once the work has been completed?
So moved.
Second.
Yep.
Any other discussion, all in favor? Opposed, no one? Very good, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay.
Yep, so, take it.
Thank you very much. Okay. So next, we have the request from Cornerstone Bank for a modification of approved site plan.
So this is sort of related. So Cornerstone Bank would like to modify, I think I'm missing a page. Sorry about that, I'm missing a page. So Cornerstone Bank, this is a similar request. It's a modification. They're actually reducing the scope of work. And the main reason that they would like to reduce the scope of work right now is because the signalized intersection kind of remains in limbo. So they really want to scale back work until we really know what's going on, which I don't blame them for that. This is something I could have done as a field modification, but it's such a change. I wanted the board to be aware of what was going on. So again, asked Dave to file for a modification and asked him to come in this evening and present to the board.
And again, now for this project, it's just right across the street, as we all know. So this was the original plan the board approved earlier this year. When we were anticipating a signalized intersection coming, so they were going to move the curb cut and sort of make it a two-way there in front of the, where the existing sort of drive-through exit is. So if you could forward to the next plan, so the change that the bank would like to make, sort of two. One was to the design of the ATM or the ITM, they're intelligent teller machines. They're going with a little smaller island with a smaller footprint and just a smaller canopy. In the area in the back, they're in the exact same location as they were before, except in lieu of sort of doing all the landscaping, they want to use the existing exit curb cut that's there and basically just keep one-way circulation once you get to that sort of back corner of the site. You can see we don't have to, really disturb quite as much. Much more limited area of curbing disturbance. And they're really just taking down the existing canopy on the side, leaving a concrete pad because they will have an overnight drop box where the existing ATM is. They'll put the two new, smaller, the ITM machines at the rear, and then really just stripe an aisle and have sort of two 20-foot one-way lanes along that existing area that would work well with where the existing exit curb cut is. So until which time the state gets the intersection done, then maybe we could do something different. But for the time, this could actually work with either scenario. Even if we did have to move the curb cut to accommodate the intersection, this same configuration could work. Much less disruption to the site. We're only disturbing a small area of that larger landscape island and a very small area of the rear one. We already met about a week ago with Gene and also Lauren Vivier with Conservation, and just to confirm that we wouldn't have to go back to Conservation because we're not really proposing anything within the 200-foot buffer zone other than some restriping of some existing pavement areas.
Okay. Any questions? Dane, do you have any questions or comments? Wally?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
No questions.
No questions.
I guess we're all set then. So we just need a motion to vote to approve the modifications.
So moved.
Second that.
All in favor? Very good.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, next we have Blueberry Hill Estates, release Phase 1 from covenant and approve the bond amount. Over that, Gene?
So we have, so we have Justin on the call. Justin, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. And we have
Good
John
evening.
Stelmach here as well. John, you can stand up here if you'd like. So, Justin, we're going to pull up the phasing plan, so you're not going to be able to see anything for a second. But I just
Okay.
want to bring that up. So the board has been getting all of the really weekly reports in some cases, sometimes every other week. And I think as you can see from the reports, or if you've gone up there, they've done a really great job. Things are moving along really nicely. I was up there Thursday with John Shevlin and Justin and his crew. And Phase 1 is really complete. The pavement will be going down in a couple of days. And they would like Phase 1 released so that the model home can be moved into the development, because right now it's sitting in the cul-de-sac. And then also there are, Justin, 5 under agreement?
We have 3 right now.
3 under agreement. So, and then
Yes.
they have 3 under agreement, so they'd like to be able to pour the pads and, you know, start getting some of the lot work done over the colder months. And I did have police and fire go out and inspect. I did have John Shevlin go out and inspect, and everybody's satisfied with the work that's been done. There's plenty of room to turn around for emergency vehicles. They've done, if you haven't been up there, I encourage you to go up there, maybe after it's paved, and even take a walk in there. It looks really good. And I also encourage you to go take a look at the model home, because it's actually quite nice. So John Shevlin did review the budget that Justin provided for the remainder of the work for this phase, and it's $383,438.53. And I would recommend that the board vote to release Phase 1 from the covenant, and in exchange, we would secure the amount of, $383,438.53 in a tri-party agreement to secure the rest of the improvements.
Okay,
And if you have any questions, Justin is on the line and John is here.
great. Any questions before we take the vote? Nothing. Here. All set?
No.
Okay, I guess we're ready for the vote then. Did you get that to make the motion? Do you want Jane to repeat it again? Whoever wants to make the motion to do this?
So
I'll
the-
take the motion.
Yeah, the motion would be to move to release Phase 1 Blueberry Hill Estates from the covenant recorded in Book 70254, page 123, in exchange for a bond in the amount of $383,438.53.
Very good. Do we have a second then?
Second.
Second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Very good. All set.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, John. Nice seeing you. Have a good night.
Okay, Jean, whenever you're ready, we'll go in the
All right.
the zoning changes.
So it is that time of year, a little earlier than usual because of the change in town meeting date. So we do have some zoning amendments that will need to go on town meeting this year. Most of them are to make our bylaw consistent with the new state statute, which goes into effect February 25th of 2025, which allows for accessory dwelling units by right if they meet a certain criteria. But also I have, I think, at least one cleanup item, and then I have something related to non-conforming uses. So let's see what order I put these in. So the first one is the enforcement violations and penalties, and that would be a proposed change to section 300-18.1. And I don't know how many times I've read this in the past 19 years, but never realized that it still said the bylaw would be enforced by the Board of Selectmen and that they would issue building permits. And I happened to be doing something with the new building inspector, and he said, this seems odd. And I said, oh, it is. So we would propose to amend this to strike Board of Selectmen and insert building inspector. So we need to hold a public hearing, and to start that process under Mass General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 5, we need to send it to the Board of Selectmen for them to pass back to us to start the public hearing process. So the appropriate motion would be to move to serve as petitioner for the proposed zoning amendment for Section 300-18.1, enforcement violations and penalties, and to forward that to the Board of Selectmen to begin the public hearing process per Chapter 48, Section 5 of Mass General Laws.
Great. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second, anyone?
Second?
Wally? Any other discussion, comments, questions? If not, all in favor? Very good.
And then the next changes are for our proposed accessory dwelling unit changes to become compliant with the statute that really will, regardless of what we do, it will be in place February 2025. So I think I've provided you a lot of information on the housing bond bill. So when the housing bond bill came out, there were a variety of provisions in there, all geared toward housing creation. And so one of them was that communities must allow accessory dwelling units by right. The by right could be 50% of the gross floor area of your dwelling, or 900 square feet, whichever is less. And you cannot require a special permit for that, it's just by right. We currently allow units by special permit, and our bylaw actually has worked quite well. And I'm currently working with somebody right now, and their home is only 980 square feet. So under that by right provision, there would be a little over 400 square feet for their accessory dwelling unit, which really doesn't give you enough room for an accessible unit. In this case, he wants to build one for his parent. So my recommendation is that we keep our special permit provisions, which town council has said we can keep what we have, we just have to allow the smaller units by right. So I've given you changes consistent with that, keeping the special permit process we have for those that don't meet the by right criteria, but also adding the language to indicate that if you want to build, if you have a 1,000 square foot home and you want to build a 500 square foot accessory dwelling unit, provided it meets all the building fire code setbacks, lot coverage, you can just go straight to the building inspector and do that. So it's something that we have to do to amend our bylaw, and I've inserted all of the new language, kept our existing language. It's been reviewed by town council, and I don't know if anyone, I think this one's pretty cut and dry. We've discussed this one before as well. So if nobody had any questions, I would ask that you again vote to serve as the petitioner, and the appropriate motion would be to move to serve as petitioner for the proposed zoning amendment for the accessory dwelling units, and to forward that to the Board of Selectmen to begin the public hearing process per Chapter 48, Section 5 of the Mass General Laws.
Great. You have the motion?
So moved.
Okay. Second, anyone?
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? No. Very good.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I just ask you a question? How will the town keep track of all these accessory units? Will
They'd
they
have-
need to?
They'd have permits, so we don't.
Building permits,
Right,
but they don't
Yeah.
need a special permit.
right, exactly.
Okay.
Yep, so the larger units would still go to zoning board of appeals, still go through that special permit process. Say, for example, the person I'm working with right now decides, you know, at 500 isn't going to work for me, I really need 650, which I will say the average unit size we've been getting has ranged somewhere between 680 and 780. They haven't been huge, but in some cases, it would be really small if you went with 500. So if they don't need to come to zoning board, they still go to the building inspector, and they apply for a building permit. It's still reviewed. I would review it to make sure it meets all the setbacks, coverage. If it needs conservation approval, it still goes to conservation. So it just takes out that special permit portion of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dean, sorry, one question.
Sure.
Under the special permit, is there any upper limit to the size of an accessory?
No, it says that it has to be subordinate to the primary residence. So the zoning board of appeals can review it on a case-by-case basis to see if what you're proposing really makes sense and is really subordinate to the primary dwelling unit, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So if they went, a question, if they went through that special permit routing, then the other regulations would still apply or not apply regarding occupancy, owner occupancy, and vice versa,
Owner
rentals?
occupancy no longer applies, so we take that out in
gets
all
taken out.
cases. That's being stripped from what you can require for accessory
Even under
dwelling
special
units.
permitting for ADUs?
Where town council's recommending that we make it consistent with the by right units. It is very specific in the guidance, though, that they cannot be used as short-term rentals, and you'll note that we're keeping that language in our bylaw. And actually, I think where our existing language is not intended for short-term rentals, this actually now says the use of an ADU as a short-term rental, as that term is defined in Chapter 64G of Massachusetts General Laws, is specifically prohibited. So a little stronger language.
Okay, so
That much stronger.
just a scenario, somebody builds an ADU, it's compliant. What is to prevent an individual, this is just a scenario, of actually renting out the primary unit?
They can.
They can.
They can, yeah. So they could move into the ADU and they could rent out the
Yeah.
primary. They could build the ADU and they could rent out both, the way that this is now in, or will be in the Mass General Laws.
Yeah, and any other special use cases that might apply?
Not that I can think of. I think the main thing that they did address was the short-term rentals,
Yes.
because I think that was everyone's fear, is you're trying to create housing. However, if I'm just building this, putting it on Airbnb, and then there is another provision in the law that a town may allow multiples. Town council read that as, we will allow multiples on one parcel, and I read it as may allow. And so I didn't want to put it in here. I don't think that we're at that point where I want to say that you can apply for a special permit to have 5 ADUs on your property. So we've left that out. He said it, could be challenged in the future, and we might have to put it in there. But right now, I'm not getting that guidance from the state, so we'll wait and see.
So now this would what about our minimum zoning of 750 square feet, I think it is, for a primary dwelling? That's
Doesn't
a
apply,
minimum
right,
build.
it doesn't apply for accessory
So that
dwelling
would stay
units.
in our standard as a primary minimum
Yes.
size, right?
Yeah, so we do have on the table, it says unless specified otherwise, and in the ADU bylaw, it specifically talks about the 500 or the 50% or the 900, whichever is less. And then the special permit ones are clearly subordinate to the primary residence. So by the nature of that language, kind of trumps that 750, because we need to make that calculation or judgment when the time comes.
All right, thank you for the clarifications.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dave. Very good. Okay, so can we have the motion then? Make a motion.
And we have that one.
We already,
We already did, oh,
Yep,
great.
already did it, yeah.
Just need to vote then. We'll all approve this. We already did.
We already voted.
We already
Oh, so the
voted.
question came after.
we're on the
All
next
right,
one.
No
Yeah, the
problem.
questions came
No
out
problem at
a
all.
little backwards.
I'm slowly catching up. Okay, we'll go on to the next one.
And then the next one is to add a definition for accessory dwelling unit. We didn't have a definition, or we don't have a definition in the bylaw, so this is the exact language that's contained in the new statute language. So the appropriate motion for this would be to move to serve as petitioner for the proposed zoning amendment for section 300-2.2, terms defined, and to forward that to the Board of Selectmen to begin the public hearing process per Chapter 48, Section 5 of the Mass General Laws.
Very good.
So moved.
You moved, the second? Second. Molly? All in favor? Very good. Opposed, no. Great.
The next one is kind of a long series of changes, but basically, the way the Housing Bond Bill is written and the way this will go into Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, is that any district that allows for single-family dwellings, you must also allow the accessory dwelling units. So these changes will update rural residential, suburban residential, commercial, commercial tourist, commercial 2, historic commercial, and special use, to list both types of ADU. Right now, we only have ADU in rural, suburban, and special use. And so we need to add it to the commercial districts where we allow for single-family homes. And So you'll see we have both language, the by right and the special permit. So,
I have a question.
sure.
In the commercial zone, where residential houses can be built as well, and you have an ADU unit and a commercial unit, could a business have an ADU?
They can, right now, have an accessory apartment. So right now, in, say, commercial tourist, it allows accessory apartments in a building primarily used for permitted use in the district. So you could have retail, and you could also have apartments in that building. So this is really, you've got a single-family residence, and now I want to build an addition for an ADU, or I want to create an ADU within that,
Right.
or I want to do a standalone outside of it. We already have provisions for apartments in the commercial buildings.
But it could be a separate from the commercial, here, the commercial building, let's say, a donut shop, and say that they actually make their own donuts in the shop, and let's say that their employees, could they have an ADU on that same plot of land?
We're saying no, because we're saying it has to be accessory to a single-family home.
Okay.
That could be challenged in the future, but right now, that's the way that we're reading it, and, you know, kind of our network of planners has discussed this, and we've been webinared to death on this. So right now, we are all taking the approach of it is intended as accessory to a single family. So not a multifamily, not a commercial building, accessory to a single. And there are other mechanisms for people to get an apartment approved in a commercial building.
Okay.
So the donut shop could potentially have an apartment, but not necessarily using these provisions.
Great.
Okay?
Thanks, Gene.
You're welcome. So for this one, the appropriate motion would be to move to serve as petitioner for the proposed zoning amendments to Section 300-4.2 Rural Residential District, Section 300.4-4.3 Suburban Residential District, Section 300-4.4 Commercial District, Section 300-4.5 Commercial Tourist District, Section 300-4.8, I think I missed something there. 300.4, sorry, excuse me. I have 300, 4.8, and 4.9 historic commercial, but I think that's wrong. Sorry, can you bear with me for a second? I want to make sure I have the numbers right.
Do these things need to be hooked up to sewer water?
Did you print out the one of how it looks in the text for all these? No?
Accessory dwellings.
Okay.
Oh, no, well, it would be,
How does it work?
300.
the main dwelling's already served by sewer, they have to use that sewer, they couldn't put a separate.
Okay, so somehow it all hooks in.
Oh, yeah.
Hook it up to that, to what exists, if it's a well or town water.
Yeah,
I think it
I
just
mean,
stated it.
You'd have to, yeah, you wouldn't,
They wouldn't need a separate,
So,
no, they'd have to use whatever's there, I mean, it'd be.
yeah.
Right.
it's commercial too. All right, so it's 300-4.5 Commercial Tourist District. 300-4.8 is commercial too. That's what I'm missing
Yeah, and that's,
in that language. Section 300-4.9 Historic Commercial District, and Section 300-4.10 Special Use District, and to forward those to the Board of Selectmen to begin the public hearing process per Chapter 40A, Section 5 of Mass General Laws.
very good. Someone want to make a motion?
Oh, okay.
So moved?
A second?
I'll second that.
Wally, any discussion? All in favor? Okay, so
All right.
it passes
And then-
unanimously.
The final change is related to non-conforming lots and structures. So for some time now, the Zoning Board of Appeals has, well, for the whole 19 years I've been here, Zoning Board of Appeals has been really inundated with requests for, you know, I want to put up a shed. I have, in one case, we just had somebody, he has 7 acres, but he only has 80 feet of frontage. It's a lawfully non-conforming lot, but according to the bylaw, he has to come into the Zoning Board of Appeals before he can put up a shed. And not all the lots are that large, that's just one example. A really great example is Draper Woods. When that subdivision was approved, the frontage was 100. It's now 125. they're past their zoning freeze of 8 years. So anybody who lives in Draper Woods, if they want to put up a shed or they want to put up a swimming pool, even though they have the right size lot, they can meet all the setbacks, they need to go to the zoning board of appeals to get approval to put up that shed, pool, accessory structure, small garage, whatever it may be. So I had proposed some changes last year that town council thought was too broad because I included porches and decks, because he said, well, that's part of the primary structure, it probably should still go through that process. So we worked with town council this year to kind of scale that back, and I worked with the new building inspector, and we came up with language that would merely allow you to go to the building inspector if you're lacking in area or frontage, but you want to put up a shed, or you want to build a pool, or you want to put up a garage, and your lot coverage is fine, and you meet all the setbacks. You still have to go to conservation if there are wetlands, you still need to get a building permit, but you don't need to have a surveyed site plan, which the building inspector doesn't require for a shed. And by the way, if you're under 200 square feet, you don't even need to go through that full process to build a shed. So there are a lot of good reasons to do this. It's burdensome on property owners, really, that should be able to put up a shed if it meets the setback. So this is the proposal, and really all it would do was add a new paragraph to the section 300-15.2, nonconforming uses and structures, that says the proposed, so it lists three sections, and this would insert a new paragraph that says the proposed alteration, reconstruction, extension, or structural change consists of a separate accessory structure on a legally nonconforming lot where the proposed structure is not used for human occupancy and will comply in all other respects with the bylaw. So any accessory structure not used for human occupancy, if you're going to meet all the setbacks and lot coverage and you're on a lawfully nonconforming lot, you can merely just apply to the building inspector instead of going, and Taylor's been through this process, so he knows to build a small garage, so he knows exactly what we're talking about.
Build a tall, small garage.
Yes. Yes. So, I've sent this language to the zoning board of appeals. Some of the members may actually come to the public hearing when we hold it. But the appropriate motion would be move to serve as petitioner for the proposed zoning amendments to section 300-15.2, nonconforming uses and structures, and to forward those to the Board of Selectmen to begin the public hearing process per Chapter 40A, Section 5 of the Massachusetts General Laws.
Great, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Anyone?
Seconded.
Second, Brad. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed, no one. Very good. Great.
And so our next meeting date is December 9th, and these will not be on that public hearing. These will be on the first January meeting, because the Board of Selectmen will vote to pass this back at their next meeting. We will advertise and hold a hearing in January to be in time for the April town meeting. And as of right now, we have nothing for December 9th. We'll keep you posted. And we do have the Open Space and Recreation Plan Public Forum on December 10th. So I would encourage any of you that might be available to come and attend.
Very good. Oh, thank you very much, Jane.
You're welcome.
Okay, so next we have old and new business. Jane, do you have any old and new business? Wally? No? Sue?
No.
Brad?
Nope.
Kelly?
Nothing.
Dale? Okay, great. Motion to adjourn? So moved.
Second?
Second, all in favor? Very good. Have a good evening.